In today's video, I'll be talking to you about an automated client onboarding process that most agencies can follow inside of Go High Level or any other platform in order to onboard customers super fast. And specifically, before we jump into this video, I want to first of all talk about the manual steps that a typical onboarding would involve for service-based businesses, before then showing you the behind the scenes of how we actually go about onboarding our customers. So typically, what does an agency onboarding involve? Well, I'm glad you asked. The first thing most of the time is the prospect emailing you saying, hey, I want to onboard, what are the next steps? Usually after that, in one order or another, you typically will send the contract to the prospect, you will send them the payment link, and only after they sign the contract, they complete the payment, can they then fill in an onboarding form. Now, this is critical for the onboarding form to come after, so that you kind of oblige them to pay and do the paperwork before they proceed to that step. And then finally, after the onboarding form is filled in, you can then have some internal delay so that you can hand over from sales to customer success and then get them booked in for an onboarding call. Now, these steps are actually pretty straightforward to automate, especially in Go High Level. But the challenge really comes with a setting of internal reminders to be able to track where the customer is at during their onboarding process. So for instance, if the customer has not signed the contract and it's been 2 days, you ideally want to first of all be notified internally that, hey, the customer still hasn't signed the contract. And then secondly, you want to automate the follow-up to the customer saying, hey, the contract needs to be signed still. Can you take a look? So once again, this is additional complexity that we don't need to worry about just yet. But these steps are super easy to automate and super simple to automate. Now, as I mentioned, after 2 years of pure trial and error and a lot of misery, this is the best flow that I discovered to date. And it includes the filling in of a client close form in order to trigger the entire onboarding process. So let's take a look. Essentially, the way it works is something like this. And of course, it would look really, really complicated for anyone that's trying to understand this flow. But the first step, as I mentioned, is the filling of the client close form over here. Now, for those of you that may not be aware of what a client close form is basically an opportunity for a sales rep to share everything that they know about the customer, including the company name, the email, the website, any sort of details about, the proposal link, which will then be populated into the contract, the deliverables, which will then be populated into the contract, the salesperson, so that we can assign the revenue to an individual, and all of this other stuff, including the pricing package, so that we can automatically then invoice them later down the line inside of Stripe. So in my opinion, the number one best trigger in order to trigger the consequence actions in the onboarding is always to fill in a long form like this, which basically contains everything that we know about the customer, all the technical setup, like who's covering the cost of tools, all of these other FAQs that are super important for the customer success person to understand, where the customer is at, and then also the financial and contractual information, which can trigger automated invoices being charged, and then on top of that, automated contracts being sent out. As soon as you click on submit, this will trigger the rest of the onboarding flow, which once again, I will walk you through over here. Now, you could see the different branches. I wouldn't worry about this specific flow here because for context, it was 10 times smaller when I've created it originally. It's been like 2 or 3 months since we have a full-time automations person. And of course, they had to take it a step further and make it even more complicated than that. But simply put, all it is, if we go back here, is the client close form being filled in. You then send the documents. For the documents, all you need to make sure you have is the template of your contract. So if I show you the template of the contract here, I've saved it in Google Drive for whatever weird reason, because I didn't want to show it inside of Go High Level. But basically the client close form automatically fills in this contract wherever it's like semicolon, and then there will be like curly brackets here with a proposal link. You will have the deliverables over here in curly brackets as well. So automatically added from the client close form. The cost of sales tools will be here as well. The billing cycle, all of that data that we had from the actual client close form gets automatically mapped into this template inside of Go High Level, right? So that's the first step. If we go back here, so we can see that's the client close form being filled in, triggering the sending of the documents and the invoices. Now for the invoices, you would need to go inside of Go High Level and basically set up the actual invoice templates. If I just go here briefly, hopefully you can't see my revenue metrics for the month or anything of that sort. Let's give it a second to load. Voila, you should be able to see all the different invoice packages, and you can see all of these are templates. So the invoices that are templated, and based on one of the choices that we made originally in this onboarding form in the client close form, it automatically matches a specific invoice template, and then it creates that invoice and sends out to the customer with an email as well. So let's go back to these steps. So ideally, you trigger it with client close form. You then send out the documents, whether it's the contract and the invoice. The onboarding form, this step is semi-manual right now for us because we like to add a tag as soon as the contract is signed and as soon as the invoice is paid. Right now, I think it's a separate flow that we have where you just adds a tag to the client saying, hey, invoice paid, contract signed. And then at that point, we automatically email them with the onboarding form. So that's one way you could do it. And then after that, they can schedule a call with you, with your customer success team. And then throughout that, you have a bunch of internal notifications coming through as well. Now, the idea of this video is not to overwhelm you and tell you like, hey, you need to have an onboarding flow that looks something as complicated as this, but rather is to tell you that after trying all of these different platforms, Go High Level is the simplest one to try using this onboarding flow with, because you can basically centralize your pipeline, your CRM, your payments, your contracts, your email marketing stuff that you do throughout the onboard, like your email sending that you do throughout the onboarding. All of that good stuff can be fully automated inside of Go High Level for $99 a month or so. So once again, no affiliation with Go High Level just yet, but go check them out because in my opinion, it's the #1 best place in order to onboard customers and even to track all of those sales conversations throughout, since it's just all stuck inside of one platform. So if you have any questions on that, if you want to see me build out this onboarding flow completely from scratch on my own, that's something that I can definitely do on a random Sunday. So by all means, just like this video down below if you want to see a complete build out from completely raw to, a fully automated onboarding process. And I'll be more than willing to do that and share the actual templates from Go High Level as well. So yeah, just call me out on that and I'll be more than happy to record that. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, then do give it a like. And some final steps for you implementing this would just be, first of all, encouraging you to collect feedback from customers. When you onboard the first 5 or 6 customers, make sure to ask them for feedback because a lot of the time they'll tell you about the typos in the emails or whatever steps that they could tell were heavily automated, in which case you may need to reconsider those. Make sure to test run these automated onboardings quite a few times. I would say on our side, I checked last time, we had 58 tests of the onboarding. So I think it was like 58 times we ran the onboarding process so far, of which 6 or 7 were for new clients. So we've tested it over 50 times to make sure that every single email gets sent out at the right time and so on. So I very much encourage you to test this at least 10 times before implementing it for customers. And then on top of that, real world practice, the best way to practice is just by, being prepared to have to troubleshoot throughout this onboarding process. If, any of the automations go wrong or whatever, just apologize to the client and tell them that you aspire to be like fully automated. That's why you're trying to do this. But that's that. If you have any questions in the meantime, my DMs are always open. Make sure to connect on LinkedIn, drop a like down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.